Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Right and Exact. I'm Doshon Farad. As we know, the situation of slavery in Libya has been a major concern and a major controversy for the past several months. It was brought to attention by several news entities, CNN in particular. We're here in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club with the founder of the Ali Global Peace Initiative, a man who is well-traveled, well-studied. He's been around for quite some time, an activist, Brother Imam Malik. Today he held a press conference here on February 21st to bring further attention to the crisis of black people being sold into slavery in Libya. We just have a few things we want to go over with him. Brother Imam, first of all, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much, brother, and I thank you for coming here at the National Press Club in Washington to give us coverage on this very important event as we deal with ending the slave trade in Libya that has come to our awareness through, as you have mentioned, various news outlets. So I thank you for coming from so far away.
Well, let's get right to it. Brother Imam, why is the AfricanAmerican Muslim community virtually totally silent on this issue concerning blacks in Libya being sold?
I think from what I've seen so far, people really are not aware. I would hope that's true. I was not aware until I saw the reports. I was not aware until I began to research it. So I think there is a sense of a lack of awareness, because a lot of times we don't get involved in international affairs unless someone is pushing it, in our faces. We're constantly aware of other parts of the world of Islam because it's always in the news, whether we're looking at Afghanistan, Iraq, or Syria, or Palestine. Those things are constantly available. This particular story was carried by CNN and other outlets. I believe that we have to continue to spread the word, and we have to accept that it's our duty and responsibility to do everything that we can to free men, women, and children who are being sold into enslavement, who are being beaten, tortured, raped, and killed ultimately by a very large criminal enterprise.
Now, during your press conference, at the press conference, while you were delivering your remarks, you had said that you felt that you were getting a sense of denial in the Islamic world concerning this crisis. Why do you feel that? And briefly, if you would, briefly elaborate.
Yeah, the Muslim community knows that we as Muslims are supposed to be those who are the carriers of the highest expression of nobility and human excellence and respect for the dignity of life in all human beings. I believe that when Muslims have to face the reality and embrace the reality that there is racism, there is sexism, there is tribalism, and there is slavery that is being perpetrated by the Muslim community on innocent men, women, and children in the gates of Africa, I think it's a very painful reality that we try to run from. And sometimes we'll turn to the false narrative of blaming America and Israel for all of our problems. Well, this is one of those issues that we can only blame ourselves.
And I noticed, of course, you mentioned something that is oftentimes overlooked, and that is racism in the Islamic world, specifically as it pertains to those of African descent. What do you think is behind that? We always speak about white supremacy in Christianity and in Judaism. Do you feel that white supremacy is influencing the racism that exists within the Islamic world, or the Islamic/Arab world?
Well, racism as we know it in the American context is new. So before white supremacy kicked in as we know it in America, there was racial and ethnic supremacy being practiced in various cultural societies in the Arab world as well as in Africa. Now let's be very mindful that there are African Arabians, that there are many Arabs who are indigenous to the land in which they're in who are of darker skin, that the Arabs are a people they are Arab Turks, they are Arab Indians, they are African Arabians, they are Arabs who are from places like Yemen. It is a cultural dynamic. Arabic is a language, and those who speak the language are classified as Arab. Now, back to your point. There is a sense of Arab superiority or supremacy that exists. There is that false narrative that black people are slaves within the Muslim Arab community. And that goes all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad's time when Bilal was called Sauda. He was called the mother of blackness. And the Prophet, when he was informed that the Sahaba said those evil and unacceptable words to Bilal, the Prophet responded to him that you are a man that in you is still words of ignorance. So it's not like the Arabs and the Africans learned white supremacy from the white man. This has been a problem, and now it has escalated with the introduction of white supremacy as it is, because it has its ability to be a global phenomena. So all over the Muslim world, people of darker skin, they buy a cream called Light and Lovely. There's a reason for that. It's the same thing that Black America has gone through, which is self-hatred. So we begin to have self-inflicted wounds. That's a sign of a greater psychological problem. So we have to deal with reality. Yes, in the Muslim community, racism is real. There is a disregard and a disrespect for the very presence of the black man and woman. And as I said earlier, that we fight to kiss a black stone, but we do very little to respect the dignity and the humanity of a black man, a black woman, or the black child.
As we get ready to conclude this broadcast, Brother Imam, you mentioned the importance of people of African descent in America and people of African descent, our continental African brothers and sisters, connecting with each other, working with each other, Pan-Africanism, if you would. We spoke about the African-American Muslim community being silent, which of course includes many African-American imams. Mm-hmm. What do you feel the African-American community should be doing, but our public figures and, quote, leaders in particular should be doing regarding ending this crisis in Libya?
Well, in all fairness, we have the power to unite and to bring awareness to the issue and force a policy to be created to bring a sense of security and stability and pressure on the system that is responsible for this captivity. Now, I believe that the Muslim community, the African community, African-American community, and the larger community, collectively, brother, we are responsible. This is not a black issue. This is an issue of freeing a people that are trapped in enslavement. Now, African imams, it's difficult for them to stand with me on this issue, because if they are recipients of donations from any Gulf states that they hope to receive in the future a big donation to build a school or mosque, challenging this issue of the dehumanization of the African presence is the perfect ingredients for no more donations. So I think we have to overcome the fear, put our trust in Allah, and not worry about how people respond to the truth of what's at hand. So we have to accept also, beloved, that we are part of the African experience in America. We're not separate from our people. And that has been one of the greatest tragedies. We don't really know who we are. Although Allah says, I made you into nations and into tribes, we don't know who that is. Because under the disguise of white supremacy and false doctrine of white Christianity, the slaves that were captured and brought to this land were robbed of the knowledge of self, brother. So many will feel indifferent. I told you this earlier. Many Muslims I hand this out to, even Africans, didn't even want to deal with it. Said it's too complicated. They don't want no trouble. So I think that becomes part of the problem.
And of course, we would have to ask trouble from who. But thank you, Brother Imam Abdul. We thank you very much for joining us.
For coming.
This is Doshon Farad. You've been listening to Right and Exact. Please tune in next time. Thank you very much for joining us.